Okay, folks, welcome into our GDT meeting for the month of April. Thanks for coming here. We have a great showing. Let's get started. The news.
Lay news.
That's me. So we've just come from an event where RTD had, a chief of police. Basically, what there's two finalists. You remember this was the chief of police, the
Here we
ex-one,
have a great showing.
was fired. I think he was
let's get
driving
started.
80 miles an hour and all sorts of things.
The
So we
news.
now
Lay news.
down a new chief of police, and there are two candidates, and we wanted to sort of they laid on a bit of a reception. Stations really so nice. We've just come from the event there. RTD had, a short presentation. Wandered around. Basically, what there's two good events. You remember this was had quite a fun afternoon. So the two candidates really is probably known to us in the red corner, Steve Martinago. He's currently the acting chief of police. He's entering his 10th year with RTD, so he's pretty familiar. And then the challenger is a guy called Jim Cook. He's currently the assistant chief of police for Amtrak. It's like all over the country. So he came down. It's interesting. I don't know if there's any thoughts. Any thoughts do we have?
So Joe, Richard, and myself got to meet him. Was there anything that's okay? Yeah, I think it's going to be a choice between kind of institutional knowledge and experience of how things work here versus having an outsider shaking things up. I think probably the opinions of this group is probably going to split around how good of a job do you think kind of this current setup is working, right?
Yeah, it's quite tough. So we've got a decision really between two men.
Yes. Really,
and to be honest, the only idea I've got is really take a leaf out of The Bachelor and give one of them a rose, really. So that's Deborah, much younger.
Oh dear.
No, it's not. Right, more seriously, this one we do sort of share the calamity and the realities and the nasty side of running transit. Unfortunately, these things do happen. This one is not RTD's fault. What happened here is a car came off the ramp. This happened down at E470 and I-25. It seems to be the vehicle left the ramp, down the grass, and ended up on the back of the RTD line tracks. Unfortunately, a train then came along and hit it and squashed it into the wall. So you can see the wreckage is sort of in the middle there. So clearly, not RTD's primary fault, but there will be questions. There'll be an accident investigation. An interesting fact will be how long was the car lying on the tracks before the train hit it? Could anything be done to stop that train? But here's the new thing. Whatever happens, we should this time, under hopefully the new law and the PUC's rulemaking, be able to find out what happened. So that's brand new.
So was anyone on the system on the day that this happened? Did anyone ride the E or the H on the day that this happened? Am I the only one? So the only thing that I will add to this is that, so this happened on the same day that RTD had scheduled maintenance, catenary maintenance, up here at Union Station. So the E line at this time was actually diverted So you can share your entire screen. Are you comfortable with me doing that?
Sure. You might see some proprietary code.
That's why I bought shirts in Dell last week.
Let me just.
What's that? Is that how?
Right. So we'll plug you in later. Okay. Sure. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yes. Does anyone need anything with a screen shared?
Says it can't read it.
Oh no, you're getting the presentation from Google.
Okay. Ignore.
So yeah, share the whole screen.
Okay.
Partida completa. Yeah, we gotta click on that. Perfect.
And then we can go.
Then draw, GDT meetings.
Let's find that. See how the sausage is made, folks.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi.
And I'll flick it to start. Hit slideshow.
The password is cadence.
I'll get it to where it needs to be. Hit. There you go.
Okay.
You got it. Have we got power? Have we got connect? Oh, is this working?
All right, so let's see.
James.
Yes.
It looks like it's up.
Yeah, it looks like it's up. So we don't need to share. We want to do your camera.
Guys, mind.
Hold on. Give me 1 second.
Yep.
1 second. Okay, got it. Cool. Okay, cool.
Feeling the opposite of sharp, actually. It's weird that and that did. Wonder if there was a power surge.
Is it allowing the log check?
I don't know. It might not. It's my work computer, so it might not. But worst case, I just use the space bar. It's fine.
All right, we should be seeing it. Yeah, there we are. Okay, great. So,
Okay.
are we good? Can you hear us?
Testing,
Awesome.
testing. 1, 2, 3.
I think it's awesome.
Cool.
Terrific. Well, thanks for everyone who's online. Thank you for your patience. So basically, we were just concluding on this slide here about what happened on the light rail network last week. So kind of obviously, I think it's fair to say that the car falling off the highway into the alignment was not RTD's fault. But what we saw is that the E line was taken out of service completely for the first half of the workday, right? So this happened on the peak of the work week. And what we see is the brittleness of RTD's light rail system because we had 6 things going on all at once. The first was we had this accident, but it happened at the extremity of the network, right? Very, very far southern, near the southern section of the E line. The second thing we had was that there was a planned outage here at Union Station, which meant that there were no trains that were servicing Union Station. The trains were diverted to the Central Loop. So anyone who was coming from Union Station had that extra leg, myself included. So we had that first leg. The second thing is that at the time, there wasn't information that was coming through in terms of cancellations at the Central Loop. The Central Loop has these screens, and even though the screens are modern, they don't actually say whether the train has been canceled or not. So I, at the time, didn't realize that the E was completely canceled. I didn't get the notification. The screen didn't show. There were later E's, and I just assumed that, maybe they're coming and maybe it's just not featured. So I waited. I eventually caught an H, and then I went through problem number 3, which was the slow zones, right? There had been another slow zone. We'll come to that in a second. And then ultimately, there were no E-line trains that went all the way to my station at Bellevue. I was on an H-line train, so I had to transfer, and I took a bus from Southmore. But the issue is that RTD's infrastructure is very brittle because they do not have reverse signaling. So it's extremely difficult for them to be able to run against the direction of travel that was designed for right side running light rail system. And also, their track switches, many of them are manual. They're not electronic, so they can't with ease turn, let's say, Dry Creek into a terminus point, even though they have like the tracks to do it. They have the switches. They're not automatic, so that requires a crew. So I think what this calls to is that when RTD has a disruption that is scheduled, when something unscheduled happens on top of that, on top of these kind of deferred maintenance activities that we've seen in terms of trying to get the system back into a state of good repair, it's really obvious how brittle the system is. And if I was somebody who wasn't a dedicated rider, and this was my experience, it took me, an hour and a half to get to work, right? This is kind of evocative of what a lot of us experienced last summer, where it took me 2.5 hours to get home from work. This is the kind of thing that kills ridership. This is the kind of thing that destroys trust. So it just talks to, yes, the car crash was not RTD's fault, but the brittleness of the system is something that's going to need to be addressed over time in order for us to be able to grow ridership sustainably again. So that's it for me. I'll let you.
Richard?
Was it me?
Yep.
Let's just go straight through. Service changes. You've seen this before, pretty much. A couple of nice little improvements there, and of course the usual minor schedule adjustments. So who knows what that'll do to your connections. We'll find out May 25th, which means RTD would probably around 10 days till 2 weeks before you'll find all out if they've ruined your connection. Hopefully they haven't.
It's worth noting that the phase N+1, whatever number they're on for the downtown rail reconstruction, is being pushed into the September 2024 schedule. So we should, in theory, have a May 2025 schedule period free of massive plan disruptions.
Yep.
Joe.
All right. Speaking of disruptions, slow zones. So anyone riding the E or the H may have noticed the presence of a new small slow zone between Colorado and Yale. It's the little red bits right here. Otherwise, it seems like the work is still progressing weekly on the rest of the network in an attempt to replace rail and continually get everything back up to speed. But this is the one I want to point out. We've got a new slow zone. Just like all the other ones, it'll be fixed in a month.
Surely.
Nothing to worry about.
Yeah, surely.
But we're starting to see some of the other problem areas get taken care of, which is nice, and we'll continue to monitor and hope that this timeline is realistic.
That's a good one, Joe.
James.
Okay, so for those of you who have not joined our Slack channel yet, this is how we communicate offline. This is where our work streams are. This is where we get stuff done. So just to invite you, if you are interested in joining us, you can scan this QR code here. If you are not on the Slack yet, this is also something I can give you after the meeting if anyone's interested. And if anyone you know is a transit nerd and is not able to come to meetings, but they would be interested in participating in transit conversations, just let me know, and I'd be happy to send them an invite on our behalf. Okay. So, same story as last month, right? So this time a little bit better. Just as a reminder for everyone, the year-over-year growth figures have been adjusted to make sure that we account in our fare in terms of the amount of work days. There's benefits and hazards, puts and takes. So what this does is this equalizes the amount of work days, and we can see that just light rail continues to be down really significantly as of January. So this was driven by the Southeast Corridor. Continues to be. Heavy rail is kind of the other thing that we've been following for the last 3 or 4 months, where heavy rail has been down too, right? And I think what we can attribute this to is the network effect, is that for people who used to ride the light rail and transfer, right, for that ridership that has been taken offline, you're going to see this on other parts of the system too. So we are continuing to not be in a place of recovery, and kind of this is the opposite of recovery. Does anyone have questions about project trends? Same story. So, operator shortage. So, again, we have just a really split story where in terms of hiring, they're crushing it. RTD has made a ton of progress in terms of hiring bus operators year over year. So I think it's fair to say we can give them another hand. The problem is that retention is not keeping up. It's basically not a leaky bus. Bus operators hired, we lost 3 last year. For every 5 light rail operators we hired, RTD lost 4. So this continues to be a situation that, we, again, congratulate the hiring team because they've clearly been, they've been doing a lot of really important work, but the retention issue is going to remain an issue. And especially if RTD ever falls behind in terms of the hiring, which is always possible in the coming months, this could tick up again. And the light rail issue, especially just given how the light rail vacancies have been much slower to recover. So this is definitely something that we're going to keep following.
Did we also see an increase in budgeted headcount for?
We did. So this was another interesting thing is that the budgeted headcount for light rail increased by 15 people, I think 15 to 20 people month over month. So again, when I first saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, is this slowing them down? And the answer is probably not. The answer is that they're probably trying to have a more resilient extra board, probably. But this is definitely something that we'll be hopefully getting some clarification from the service and planning team in the coming weeks. So
before we jump, did you have a ridership question?
I did. It's gone now.
When it comes back, let us know.
Okay, so the community survey is out. We've got a QR code. Who here has not taken the survey? Thank you. So anyway, this has been something we've circulated, and we encourage everyone to participate. Anyone that you know who even remotely touches RTD and actually experiences RTD, we really encourage you taking this. I think the bone to pick that I have detected, and in fact, I'm not going to taint the conversation either way. What is your feedback? How do you feel about the survey? From what you took, what are your impressions of it? Anyone? Shout it out.
My turn.
I feel like in terms of just like the formatting of it, it could have been maybe like broken up. It was kind of hard to go through. They were like, yeah, I know. I was reading the strategic plan recently, and they basically just copied the strategic plan like into the survey. I feel like it kind of been a little bit done to try to make the user experience more friendly. Instead of just this like massive list of just sliders and drop downs and etc.
Joe, do you?
I have many thoughts.
I'll let you take the thoughts then.
The thing that stood out the most to me when I took it was what wasn't there. Something distinctly missing was ridership. There was really nothing in that survey that allowed the public to say, we think it's really important that you improve this system to the point that our ridership is better. And then on top of that, a lot of the questions were framed in a way of how
there's
much
so many
value
leading
do
questions.
you see in RTD in terms of X, Y, and Z right now. So it was a bit of a poorly worded set of questions. It wasn't how valuable could this service be, or how are we performing relative to our goals. It was just how valuable is this to you right now? And then at that point, you're like, well, I don't want to answer that this isn't a valuable service because I don't want the wrong person to answer and run with it and be like, cut it all. But if I say, hey, this is an extremely valuable service, is that the feedback that you need to be getting right now? I don't
So
think
Joe,
so.
don't you know that RTD shouldn't be judged on its ridership? It should be judged on the value it provides to the community.
Yes, and the best way to measure that is how many people.
Some questions about this because they're directly copied from the wording, the strategic plan, where it says we want riders to feel this, and they literally just change the should be to do you and paste it.
Yeah, I thrown together an essay due at 11:59 too.
My favourite one is they keep asking the public to judge whether the buses are mechanically sound.
That's the strategic.
I mean, how do you guys answer that?
You don't pull out your little
okay, there aren't the holes and yeah.
I feel like we need to do inspections, so people, just like ask the public if they'll see
Yeah.
buses.
So,
Do we go kicking the tires? I mean,
the word I would use for this is it's invasive,
Yeah.
right? Is that this survey does not actually ask the public in a meaningful or robust way their opinion on how RTD is performing as an agency, right? That was the language that was chosen hampers that, right? In terms of conclusions from this. So I think what we have spoken before about being suspicious of the Net Promoter Score and the methodology in terms of how that has gone out to the general public. I think we continue to believe that if RTD is actually serious about quantifying how riders feel about their performance, this survey does not accomplish that, in my opinion.
I had just one thing to add from a user experience of this survey. There were two questions. One was how much value do you believe this would add to the network? And then another question, almost directly preceding it, was what would you like to see in this? And it seemed like the two questions were pretty much the exact same question, just worded differently, at least from my perspective. So I answered them the exact same way. That was
Just double dipping.
Yeah, pretty much.
And to be absolutely 100% clear, this is the survey that is part of the GMCO short-term goals.
Is it?
I want to make absolutely sure before I.
I don't know. I thought they'd taken it out.
In regards to this community survey itself,
I got this on an Instagram ad and shared it around, so I don't
okay,
have the
I
context
don't
or
want to speak
authority.
on it on that one. Because you guys are regarding the community survey for the personal security stuff, or
It's
just
just
overall?
very overarching.
Yeah, it's-
Yeah, I can't speak on the formal stuff on that. So it might be. I don't believe it is, but
Oh, thank God. All right.
All right.
because just to clarify, I haven't actually taken the survey myself yet, so shame on me.
Please take it.
Oh, take it, yeah.
There's the
You
QR
got my
code.
phone out.
I'll do it right now, and I'll see. So
Yeah.
I'll see if it's a survey or
So,
not.
question 6, frequency. What was it?
I'll do it
What was
right
it?
now.
Frequency, span of service.
Okay.
That was it. That's what you need.
Okay. More parking at all.
Okay.
Our
Yeah.
very own Cody here, assisting some young train conductors.
Did you guys kidnap children again?
Are you sure they're not assisting Cody?
That's a good question. Cody, can you clarify who's helping who?
More about it than I did, so.
Do you
Not an
remember we had
insult.
one
No,
kid?
the children.
Tell them about the one kid we had.
Oh, the one that usually like took over the.
He was in the middle.
Yes.
Like we had a middle, and he took it over for like his
He was like
mum was like, "This is brilliant. This is like daycare."
She thought it was brilliant until like you wanted to keep staying and so come back the next day. She's like, no, we have other things to do.
But yeah, he was changing locomotives and shunting around and doing. Oh, he was brilliant, wasn't he? That one.
Yeah, no, I think it was a great weekend, right? So there were actually 2 advocacy booths at this Rocky Mountain Train Show. The other booth, in addition to the one that you see in this picture, was actually run by Brad Schwartzwelter, who's the former conductor of the Winter Park Express. We love Brad. He was promoting a really innovative truck-on-train idea as a way to go to voters. If you're going to go to voters for something rail-related, as a strategy, not only to decrease traffic on I-70, which is something that is, I think, universally attractive, but really try to start a conversation more broadly about how can we put the existing freight rails we have to use, especially the ones that are underutilized, like the Mountain Line. It's only about 40% capacity right now, right? What could we do with those rails to take trucks off
Coleman, are you hearing anything? I rejoined.
All right.
Yeah, it's usually just restart. Okay, sorry about that, folks. We are gonna. Okay, take the survey, send it to your 10 friends, and let's get moving. Western Rail Coalition, James.
That's me as well. Okay, so earlier this month, we had the Eagle County Rail Task Force who've been kind of asking these early questions about trying to get a study done that would actually really examine. Originally, the ask was going to be to expand the mountain rail concept. One of the things that it's looking like is that the mountain rail SDP is proceeding, and it's probably too far along for this to just get tacked on as a separate quarter. Just for a reminder, for those of you who haven't been to one of our meetings before, we are talking about a section of inactive rail that's owned by Union Pacific. It's called Tennessee Pass. It connects between Pueblo and Cerro, and the section that is being contemplated for passenger service is between Glenwood Springs, which is active, all the way past Gypsum, Eagle County Airport, Avon. And what you see in this picture is the tantalizingly cool idea of this, is that this photograph is taken on an inactive grade crossing, which you're never supposed to be on if this is active track. There's a restaurant that is opened on this, but if you go immediately to the right of this image, less than 100 meters away is a gondola. So what we're talking about here is a rail connection to one of Colorado's largest ski resorts. So basically what the task force is doing right now is that they're getting conversations going. They've had conversations with CDOT, with the Colorado Office of Economic Development, and also Rio Grande Pacific, which is a lessee. They've got a lease on this line, even though the line is owned by UP. And the Rio Grande Pacific, as a reminder, they operate the A train down in Texas. So they have experience running quiet, modern, multiple unit trains in Texas. So a question for me.
On that with the Rio Grande Pacific. I mean, like, ultimately, wouldn't be the goal, like, to have something like this be operated at least, like, in collaboration with CDOT, can integrate with busing, with, the same agency that ends up running FRPR. Like, do we really want, like, I can see that, but, like, that the way, like, just we're, like, discussing this sounds like the eventually we'll have Rio Grande Pacific running the trains.
Yeah, it would be like DTO. There'd be an operator.
Like,
I mean, they don't run the A train out of the goodness of their heart either. They have an agreement with a local transit authority.
Yeah, so they would be a potential operator, but as the lessee of the line, they're in a really good position to do this. Yeah. So basically, this was something that was not on the radar at all a year ago, and we are in a completely different place today. So basically, the next set of conversations are going to be about funding mechanisms, given the fact that we can't just tack on something to the SDP, because the SDP is too far along for the mountain rail project that's going into Craig. And Steamboat. So the question is going to be exploring what is going to be possible. More to come on that. But yeah, really exciting stuff that's being led up in Eagle County. So.
What resort is that, by the way? That images?
So it's right by Beaver Creek.
It's Avon. Yeah, that's Avon.
Yeah. Sad news.
Yeah. A wonderful city council.
Some of them,
So you
take no blame here.
Chantel Lewis stays winning.
And so does Sarah Parody.
And actually, Chris Hines, I found out the backstory. It was a travel snafu, and
he would have been
remember. I bet it was. Remember Chris Hines' mobility device. I understand it was something related to that he couldn't make it back in time, but he was a very solid no as well. So really, that should be nice. But the abstention is because Romario Campbell has a family member involved in one of the contractors, so she abstained all the way through the process. Didn't really contribute. So that's fair enough. I mean, I think what's coming out of this is a couple of things, and I have actually told the airport this. The airport just does not have a plan, a decent transit mode target. Okay, they want to have 100 million passengers. They want to go to 120. They want to go 150. It's going to be. They have plans to be a mega airport, and yet they've got this 20% not driving alone, which is not a transit target because it includes ride-share vehicles and things like that. So that's the biggest thing, is calling them out and straight up saying, look, if you want to go there and be 120, 150, 100 million plus passengers and have that demand, your target is pitiful. It's just not going to work. Okay, so it's just telling them that. We remind you, while they've given it to the contract, the contract will go ahead. It's going to take years, so that kind of slowness is on our side, and hopefully the debate changes, and you keep putting it keep banging the drum, keep making the argument. Where's the transit alternative? The best bit that also we got handed in the debate was Phil Washington finally came out and said, I was obviously he's the ex-GM and CEO of RTD. So he wrote an email that says, this is not an RTD position, but I have knowledge in this because I used to run the agency. And what he said was he went through all the costs of expanding the A line. And he was just like, well, it's 70 million for this, and we need to build a track here. That's like 30 million. And he came up with, he racked up about just 400 million in costs. And you looked at it and read it and went, yeah, it sounds already quite reasonable, really. Because they want to spend 300 million and something on, they want to spend hundreds of millions on the road. And he actually sort of, by actually telling us the truth and sending a professional email saying, with a professional opinion, actually said that it's not such a big deal anyway. If he'd come and written an email when it's going to be 5 billion, I'd have said, no, Phil. So, he literally made it sound, yeah, it's just doable. We just have to do the things we have to do to build it. I mean,
and in comparison to that 400 million figure, the airport collects about $250 million a year in parking revenue alone. So
And to be clear, that is an equivalent of 5 F-35 Joint Strike Fighters.
I'm going to put that graphic up next time.
Americans be using any unit besides metric.
Football fields.
Yeah, football fields.
Empire State Buildings on the side.
That is literally 1/5 of one squadron, of which we have about 30.
You had a question?
It's interesting to note that Denver's tall airport in the world.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're following this now, but what Phil Washington and their team say and then put forward in their documents doesn't always match up, is I think the nicest way I can say this. Remember, nobody sports transit more than Phil Washington.
Do we have Miss June?
We do not.
We do not.
I'll do it. We'll take it.
Okay.
It's real quick. Paratransit Services Bill. This was has more regulation. It's passed on the way to governor. So that's great. That's one. Mode choice got through appropriations. That's onto the Senate floor. Then has to go to House. RT operating costs. Real simple bill. That was super easy. That just was a more administrative. That's gone through. We told you the news of that. That's now gone through.
Yeah.
Yep. Like we said in the morning, you will find out about what happens to these light rail accidents.
Let's go.
And this one, the RT reform, past appropriations has gone to the committee, has gone to the Senate. It then will have to go through the House. What's really interesting is this one had about 250K worth of costs attached to it. And there was a story going through it that, the budget is a real problem.
Yeah.
The overall Colorado budget is
Yeah.
a real issue at the moment. They are trying to cut. And there were stories that the things that the state were going to do to RTD, like have these committees, and were going to cost state funds.
Yeah.
And they were maybe not going to make it through. But apparently the fiscal note, it's
Yeah.
made it through so far. It's got to go through the Senate floor and it's got to go through the House. But appropriations was one where it quite easily could have been tripped up, and you made it. So
Yeah, if you want an earful about the budget, June's not here. Normally, I would say you could talk to her. You could also talk to Ian. I'm sure it's been bothering them quite a bit, but
yeah.
good thing that we got some stuff done. Colfax BRT, we love it, but the construction is it's a time. But we're making progress. I was just at chats on Colfax with Rach, who is our Colfax BRT champion. Huge shout out to them. They are wonderful. And yeah, we talked to some small business owners today about that. And
My condolences.
yeah, well, honestly, a lot of them were like, they're like worried about the business they've lost. They're worried about like losing customers, but a lot of them seem like, okay, we're doing this thing. It's happening. It's hard, but like, what can we do to like make it less painful? And I can respect that. Like, yeah, they were receptive. They were good. And then this was us at our Colfax bar crawl. So I think,
Great picture, by the way.
thank you. So
Game
our
bullshit.
very own Matt came up with this idea. It was a brilliant idea and super successful. We had, what was the final count on t-shirts?
We had 85 t-shirts and basically all of them were gone by the end.
Hell yeah.
Almost all of them.
Oh, well, it's $100.
So yeah, we could not have done this without our coalition allies either. We have one of them in the room right now, Mr. Lauren Hansen. You can see him from Yemby. He was a huge help. Pass the message on to Abe. And then Alison Torfik from DBL. She was a huge help too. So
It was great
yeah,
hearing.
and then all the
how
GDT
many
people,
people
obviously.
being shot outside that bar in like 1927.
That's the history we need to
Yeah.
know. But yeah, it was 9 bars each. We spent about an hour in, 1 to 11 p.m. So like quite the dedicated crawl for those of us who stayed the whole time. Yeah, and we're gonna do.
I got the 15, and I remember just getting on it, and I know I went to Pete's Kitchen because my credit card receipt. I don't remember getting off the 15. I remember
It's
getting
always a good
home.
sign.
So I know I didn't end up in Aurora, but I literally.
You know what
I
was
think I
wi-
crawled on it. I think.
Yeah, you got the crawl in.
The crawl, the bar crawl.
You know what was wild? Joe, 9:30 the next morning, beat me to a business meeting.
Yeah, Joe is a champ. Joe,
Dude,
you
that
drink
was
at like every
insane.
bar, and we're still going. It was like
I didn't drink a drop, and you were
Impressive.
there before me. That was
Next one. Let me do the timing.
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay, I went on a bus trip, and I thought
As one is like to do.
I'd like you to see the pictures. Okay, so I went up to I think it was Lafayette. Okay, this is Baseline Road.
Scenic.
Yeah, that's the foothills. They're apparently quite scenic. They told
Beautiful
me.
Colorado.
Beautiful, really. There's an RC bus. I saw another RC bus. There it is.
Feels like you're playing like a captcha game. Like you're like trying
Yeah.
to log into your account. You're like, is that a bus?
Yeah.
Yes or
What
no?
is that? Does anybody know Baseline Road to Boulder? You know what route that is?
Stavros.
jump.
No, stand up, sir. It's not Baseline. Oh yeah, you're right. It's it is a 225, is it?
Man, those 200 series buses.
Not
wow.
Maybe.
Not my
yeah,
bus
is it?
range,
Or is that on
unfortunately.
South Boulder Road? I don't know.
The jump is the longer
Actually, right. It's absolutely right. I don't know, but whatever.
What
I took
prize
the
does Jack
225
win
as well. I
for
did
getting
take.
this right?
I like stand up. That is a really cool T-shirt. Remember that RSD used to have these
stickers as well.
really funky.
This is before my time. What's the RTD reference here?
So the RSD they called in Boulder. All the
Oh.
bus routes are called like jump and dash and bound and stampede because
Okay.
Boulder. Okay, and
The
they used
skip
to
I've
have
seen.
and skip and hop and yeah, they're all
Yeah.
movements. And they used to have all funky little logos like that.
Bring him back.
We used to be a real country.
We should.
So true.
What's going wrong? So you get a jump. So there you go. Anyway, come back. So what it was. Can you see that?
So nothing
That-
of substance.
Nothing of
Except-
substance.
What are you talking about? That's all facts, no cap.
Yeah.
It says right there.
Yeah. I mean, what is the point of doing that? Right? Somebody in
colour.
Archie's workshop had to apply that. And you just wonder what he said when he went home. What do you do today at work? Well, I put orange on a window on a bus. Oh, lovely. And lastly, that's a picture, and that's a picture of what it should be,
Yeah.
what it could be. You know, we live in a beautiful state,
Right.
so you know. Okay, so moving on. So there's a little bit now. It's not all over. We did find this as well. So this RTD is running a competition to commemorate the 35th anniversary of the passage of the ADA Act. So that's the act that makes them provide ramps. You can't just say no to a wheelchair user. You've got to, you know, huge, great America did actually lead the world in this. So it's a commemoration. And what we did is, and we looked at this. Now, here's the thing. The white, don't get too excited. They are actually technically little green dots. And what it says is, and this is if you're going to enter the competition, you can send in your design and you use this template and you send it into RTD by, I think, 6th of May. And hopefully, yeah, you might get it on a bus if you want. And RTD will give you $3.5 grand for that.
Is anyone's passion graphic design?
$3.5 grand, you may or may not get the money.
Ian, we will be commissioning you.
Yeah, but if you submit a design that covers these windows, I might find it.
If we instead submit a design for upgrading a bus stop with inadequate ADA infrastructure, they spend $3.5 grand on fixing the bus stop.
No, they won't even fix the bus stop that's near my house that got
All right.
plowed into by a car and has been destroyed for months.
Anyway, so here's the thing. These used to be full 100%. So they're now down to 50%. There's dotted green, which is the white windows. Cannot be covered more than 50% total. So we are halfway there officially on this campaign. Come on, RTD. Let's see if we can do the get to Harley. And it's quite something as well. If you look at the windows out in the black on the design here, I'm gonna. Where's you? No,
Go
back. I was supposed to press that. That did well. Yeah, it does. If you look in black, the windshield, you don't cover that for obvious reasons. The front doors, that's so the operator can see who's coming on. Okay. This first right window, so the operator can look that way and see who he's left behind. Sorry. And then, of course, the left side, because you want to get a good chucker's elbow. So you have those windows, and you notice that they have a union. I don't want to take anything away from the operators, but notice how the operators get 100% of what they've got, which is fine, great, okay. For us riders, we get compromises and 50%.
Yeah.
Likewise, the other thing is look at the doors here. You see the rear boarding now. When you get off on a RCD bus on a rear doors, what do you end up landing on? It's just the Wild West, really, isn't it? It could be dirt, it could be ice, it could be puddles, dog number 2.
Parkour.
Yeah, it could be parkour course. I got off on a flower bed the other day.
Yeah, Director Guzman was telling us about that one bus stop that you step off of it and it's like a multi-foot puddle.
The light rail. I have to step into a puddle to get to work.
And all I'm saying is maybe don't cover that doors with
Right.
that. So if we're going to jump down a hole when we got off the bus,
At least let me see the hole that I'm jumping into.
we can see it before we go down there. And that is, and without labouring the point, we do say a lot about it. I'm going to make it in a microcosm of RTD. Is the operators have been taken care of on this situation. They've got all
As
the
they
windows
should be.
they need, as they should be.
Okay. Front windshield.
Customers, we need to be right up there. Okay, and
Yeah.
right now we're 50% on compromises. We need to be right up there, and that policy. This is a microcosm, but it needs to go all the way through the agency from top to bottom, left to right. That idea that the customers and the operators get the same and get the best experience, and that's literally my soapbox for RTD this month.
You're here.
You're here.
Moving on.
Events, folks.
Jesus, really classic.
So,
board meeting.
if you have not been to who here has been to an RTD board meeting?
So many times.
Has, yeah. All right, the rest of you should feel bad about that. They're a lot of fun for the first 2 hours. They're almost always on Tuesdays. The next one is 2 weeks from now, just because normally it's the next Tuesday from one of these meetings, but this is 2. I highly recommend you come. Tell them about the police. You have 2 weeks to cook the spiciest meatball, and I'm already working on it. And for those who haven't come, until you have been to a board meeting and stayed the whole time, you will never know the orgasmic bliss of seeing a meeting is scheduled and knowing you're not going to attend. So pull up.
Alrighty.
With that, you're going to plug our own meetings as well?
Monthly.
Yeah, these are also pretty cool.
You're already at one? Yeah, go ahead, Keith.
And we might not even run to 11 o'clock, so we're doing good.
We need to get you new. Yeah, see.
Yeah, I'm iconic.
I
I was like, what should I wear? Oh, they all know the purple.
Yeah, you've trademarked that color.
Yeah, that's mine. You better not touch it. Yeah.
That was the night we ran to 10:30, wasn't it?
Yeah, buses are cool, Matry.
It was a great presentation, but I was like, oh, we are not riding the bus on Federal when I tried to do that. Okay, cool. Even more meetings. FRPR, they have a virtual meeting. It's very nice, actually. I was at one recently. It was very nice, actually.
We were heard.
Yes, we were heard. They were nice. It was nice. It was easy.
We started an important conversation, and I think public comment was brought up, 7 or 8 times throughout the rest of the meeting.
Yeah, it felt very listened to.
I listened to it without hearing the public comment. I tuned in late and listened, and I was like, what the hell have these guys done? Because you had multiple references, as we heard earlier in public comment. What have my gang said?
Yeah, I still need to check if that website ever got fixed. Yes.
But it's just, it does work, and just keep calling him and telling him that 3 chains a day is terrible.
The Inc. Transportation Committee meeting, our very own Joel Noble, I believe, is in charge of this. 6 p.m. Thursday, May 8th. Be there or be square. Colarail, I believe I saw a Colarail representative in the house tonight. They are having their annual meeting 9 a.m. Saturday, May 10th. be there or be
It's in
square.
Denver this time.
I will not.
Wild.
And they've got Lisa Kaufman, who is pretty much now becoming the main person with rail in Colorado.
Yep.
So
I
that
will
should
not
be
be there,
really
but
good.
please go.
That should be really good.
Because I have conflict. And Denver City Council, please show up. It's great. We have some really good council members. I don't always agree with all of them, but Sarah Parody stays winning. So, all right, more events. Transit and bike trip to Colorado Rail Museum. So, this is going to be. Oh, this is. Hold on. Oh, sorry. I left in the wrong text. It's not a transit-oriented hike. It's more like a transit-oriented bike ride.
Just
That's
run
my
fast.
bad.
You can keep up.
Yeah, that's
First
my bad.
museum,
Ignore this
bike
text.
museum.
But yeah, this was Cody's idea, generously. Great idea. We are going to meet at 9:45 at Union Station, Saturday, April 26th. We are going to hop on the G line, which I believe is around 10 a.m.?
It'll be 10:01.
10:01. Yeah. So I want you to be there at 9:45 because I do not trust all of you to be there on time if I tell you the actual time. We're going to take the G line out to Word Station, and then we're going to bike along the Clear Creek Trail to the Colorado Rail Museum, where if you pay the extra $4 beyond the general admission, we'll all get to ride a train together. So I highly recommend that. And we're going to get lunch and drinks afterwards at New Train Brewing. So love to see you there. Hopefully the weather's nice for biking, but yeah. It's yours.
All right. So we're bringing back, we used to call them ride-alongs, but I'm calling them transit tours just because. And we're going to start with the 120X, which is supposed to be in that route. Oh, you are missing out. It is brilliant. It literally is. They take one of these commuter buses, the Arctics, and he just floors it up I-25. It's one of the best buses. It's like a 20-minute you wouldn't want to ride it, say, all day. But for 20 minutes, and you end up like, holy crap, we're in Thornton. Yeah, on the yeah, it's a fast
Transit accessible Cracker Barrel.
It's a transit.
More lucky than you think.
It gets you to park it up. So what we're then going to do is we're then going to jump onto its sister, the 120, just ride a little across the top. And then there'll be a bar. We're going to stop that, and we're going to end up at the end of the N line, and basically there's another bar there, and we'll end up taking the N line home, and that's the first transit on the 1st of May. Nice. And that's meet at the terminal bar for 6. I think we'll get to 6:50 on 20X.
There's a bar at East Lake, but it's.
Sorry?
There is a bar at East Lake.
Yeah, we're going to go that one. The lakeside something. It's a good bar,
no matter what it is, it will not be as bad as the Red Robin outside Park Meadows, so we're fine.
No, that one actually can serve us, yeah.
Alrighty, transit-oriented board games backed by popular demand. We cannot get rid of these. The next one's going to be at Hooked on Colfax, which I'm a huge fan of. I work remote, so I do a lot of work out of here. It's like a really nice space. They have a cool downstairs. I learned today that apparently Strong Towns Denver also meets here, so great minds think alike. But yeah, it's going to be May 3rd at 1 p.m. And it is such a transit accessible location. There are literally 5 buses you can take that have walking distance stops from them. All buses that I regularly ride.
Recommending the 20 is wild, but pop off.
It's really not that far. I'm sure it's helpful for at least one person.
The 20 is the best route across downtown, according to me.
According to James Latham.
Pretty low bar.
And yeah, there has been a revolving theme. Rach can back me up on this at some point, but there's been a revolving theme of people clearly use transit to shop at businesses on Colfax, but the business owners don't know that. So I highly, highly, highly encourage you to show up, take transit for some portion of this, and let the barista know. And this is a cool spot because a lot of these have been at breweries, and I know sometimes you get people that don't drink or under 21. This place does have alcohol, but it's also just primarily a coffee shop, so you can get coffee, tea, baked goods, no obligation to drink. And they've been supportive of Colfax BRT. They have that very same We Back the Facts mat out, and yeah, they're awesome. So would love to see you there.
Oh, right, yeah. First soccer game. So same day as the Colorado Rail Museum, the Colorado Rail meeting. Basically what it is they have a supporters group called Centennial 38. Most of American soccer teams have these groups. What they do is kind of bring in the noise and bring in that, and they have drums and flags and big tailgate, and they bring all this equipment out to the parking lot. And they run buses as well because there is no bus service up to Dick's, Good Park. So what happens is you've got this group who's privately filling the transit gap. Okay, and the way they do it is they hire a bunch of, I think they're actually now they're the same sort of buses RCD run actually.
But from Minnesota.
Yeah, they're ex-Minnesota machines, but they work, they're kind of, so it's kind of that. But what they do is they bring in a big speaker, okay, and have a proper party on board, and they take you out there and they give you a beer on the bus as well. So there's a few differences in the service. And for all of that, they charge something like 13 for the bus.
You never seen
12.
a beer on an RTD bus?
I don't do that. I don't break the code of conduct. I mean, never.
I was on the 40 the other day, somebody was
Me?
just chugging a beer.
You reckon?
We'll do it.
Yeah. So the whole day is about $45 to $50. That includes the bus ride up and back there. That includes just as much beer and food as you can ever eat and drink. A game ticket. We'll have some freebie tickets for the first 10. I'm going to try and.
So for the price of 2 drinks at a bar.
Yeah, downtown
for the price
Denver.
of 2 beers.
Yeah.
In 2025.
We could take you for a really good day out. And basically, so it's meet at the Celtic Tavern at 3 p.m. That's at 14th and Market. So that's super accessible, easy to get down to downtown. Okay. So I'll probably open some sort of call for that about 1st of May. Okay. A lot of fun. Well recommended.
Okay. Yes. So if you are a member, if this is your first meeting or you are a guest speaker tonight, please ignore this. But if you are a member and you enjoyed some pizza, if you'd please donate $3 for the amount of slices you ate. I never break even on this. I just like to recoup ideally half of this. We are a grassroots group. Everything that you see here has been paid for by a member, including all of the printouts and stuff like that. So always we appreciate your support and us helping us continue to do all this.
We literally have no money.
Yeah.
All right, and our first
So what we
speaker.
need to do is we need to switch to his PowerPoint.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So
it's in the thumb drive thing.
I'll introduce this. So,
Oh.
So
That'll
this
be
is interesting. This gentleman here, Peter Muller, he's the founder, project development director of called
I don't know
Bloomba.
if this is going to work on my
And Peter
computer.
tonight is going to talk
Do
to
you
us
have
about
PowerPoint?
alternative
Oh, you don't have
transportation
PowerPoint?
networks.
No.
we can just run it off my computer.
Okay.
We're going to see how this works, technicalities.
So, let's see
You need an
here.
HDMI.
Okay. I think the HDMI is
Yeah,
in here
just
if you have
pull
a
that.
USB-C.
Or you can just pull it out.
Or just pull
We're
this
not
out.
using that. We're not using that.
All right.
Thank you.
He doesn't need power, does he?
Probably not. No,
You
battery
don't
looks
need
good.
power, do you?
Probably good.
Yeah, your
Yeah.
battery looks good.
Yeah, can you that? Does that go?
I think this was in.
It's power.
Edward, can you send Mr. Muller an invite to the Humble Meet so we can get his presentation on screen?
Yep. What is your email?
Oh,
It's at the end of this. It's at the end of the PowerPoint.
oh,
There it is.
I'll post it for you.
Okay. Alright, go.
Okay. What I'd like to talk about this evening is transforming transit in the Denver region. Leveraging the Northwest Passenger Rail with a new technology, relatively new, called ATN, Automated Transit Networks, to give better accessibility to everybody. Just to quickly tell you who VUBA is, we're a technology agnostic ATN project developer. So we develop ATN projects with anybody's technology, anybody's ATN technology. We're staffed by engineers and planners and transportation infrastructure program managers and grant specialists and people like that. I want to start with figuring out what the problem is and how bad it is. And I'm going to be asking you to respond to all these questions. So if you please get out your cell phones and zap this QR code, or you can log into vvox.app and enter the session number. And then if you would respond to these questions as we go through them, and then we'll be able to see the results after each question is closed. And I want to base this on the mobility problems you've personally experienced in the last month or so. Not your whole life, okay? Just in the last month or so. So have you been stuck in traffic? Personally, I haven't been stuck in traffic for at least 2 hours.
Stuck in traffic on a bus count?
Stuck in traffic is whatever you want to define it as. Yeah.
Have you seen me?
Okay.
There we go.
People are standing all the way across.
Oh,
the
I see.
airport
It just-
and a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
You just have to press it once.
Is it ever or
Okay, I'm gonna
in the last month?
I'm going to move ahead. There are 2 people who haven't applied. 1 person hasn't applied. I'll give him another 2 seconds. Okay, let's look at the results. 77% yes. Are you worried about the cost of gas and running a car? Oh, sorry, preparing results. So most people are worried about the costs. No, are not worried about the costs.
You'll take the bus.
Yeah.
It's transit group.
Unusual group.
Public transit group, you'll take the bus.
Have you had to go out of your way to transport somebody else, take the kids to school, that kind of thing?
Kids are hopping on the bus.
Yeah, shove them on the bus.
So they do in the 31. They're like, kids, get
There's
on.
actually a lot of considerations.
Yeah.
Do you go out one way to transport somebody else?
Yeah. Have fun.
No. Here's $10. You're off.
Most people have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had somebody else go out of their way for you? Are you always begging a ride?
Oh. Yes.
Most people have, yes. Have you had to walk a long way? And I don't mean for exercise or fun. I mean because you didn't have an option.
The moment you go, effing out, this is a long walk. At what point? Varies per person. Had to walk a long way.
If you want to take the.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Most people have. Have you been
I'm unmuted now.
traffic accident
Oh, now.
In the last month.
right? Yeah, the last month.
The last month.
Walking.
Does riding the E-line count?
I was hiking the other day and I tripped over a stump, but I don't think that counts.
It's not really a traffic accident, is it?
No, it wasn't really. So somebody, at least one person has, I'm not sure what that percentage
Oh,
is.
awesome.
Yeah. Are you worried about pollution?
Nah, I'm good.
It's illegal now.
It's 5 personally just use public transit.
Sorry, Suncor is like half my portfolio. I can't shoot myself like that.
The other half is Excel.
Peabody.
Most people are. Are you worried about climate change?
Fuck them kids.
I expect you to live a long time, Keith. I think you.
I'm here for a good time, not a
Keith,
long
I
time.
suspect you're taking this lesson seriously, sir.
I don't know. No, if I lived in like Lagos.
No.
Also, if you're like me, melt at 75-degree temperatures.
Most people are. Okay, so there's been a lot of talk in Denver
Celsius.
about 15-minute bus service with frequent stops and frequent service. Do you think that could help solve your mobility problems?
Yes.
And you've got a number of
some,
choices.
most, and all.
I think most is the
I
honest.
would have no problem.
It's the honest one. Yeah.
Real.
Because the route geometry is still the route
That
geometry.
kind of helps with 4 but
Once an hour long sentence.
they do the 6 cents.
Oh, they do.
So there's quite a lot of support for 15-minute bus. It would solve most problems for a lot of people here. We'll come back to this at the end of this presentation and see how you still feel about 15-minute bus.
I want to know who that nun was. There's like a 3% nun. It's like somebody's like, I don't care about 15-minute bus service.
That's the person who's not used public transit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whoever you are.
That or they already have 15-minute service everywhere. So like this wouldn't solve problems. They don't have those problems.
So what's the real problem with transit? In my opinion, the 4 factors that make good transit stand out is number 1, it has many accessible stations, so you don't have to walk very far. Number 2, it has a high average speed. Number 3, it has good capacity, so everybody can get a ride. And number 4 is low cost per passenger mile. Those, to me, are the 4 goals of good transit. The problem is that they conflict with each other. If you add a station, you add a stop. If you increase the capacity, you increase the costs. So these goals are self-conflicting for intra-city transit. And for intercity transit, that has a problem because it has the stations so far apart because it has to have high speed. So those are some of the problems with transit. Let's look at a different solution. One that has many interconnected stations. All trips are non-stop or express. It has good capacity and low cost. In addition, it's personalized on-demand service there when you need it. The technology is proven, and we'll explain the network effect and the scalability a little later. This results in better mobility, better rail connectivity, economic growth, and benefits to the environment and the community. So what is automated transit networks? What is ATN? It's small, driverless electric vehicles operating on dedicated guideways. They can be at grade, but they're usually elevated. Offline stations, like you see in the picture, it's an at-grade station with an elevated guideway. The vehicles on the elevated guideway are bypassing the station because that's not their stop. And then finally, onboard switching. And why all these things work is partly what I'm going to be explaining to you tonight. How it works is you go to a station, it's very easy to use. All you have to know is the name of your destination station. You enter that in the kiosk or on your smartphone. A vehicle is already there waiting for you in the station, or one arrives within a minute or two, and off you go riding express above the traffic. This technology has been around for a long time. Here's the history of it. Started in 1975 in Morgantown, West Virginia. These are 22 passenger vehicles. They carry about 15,000 passengers a day on the campus. There's 5 stations. They do up to, I think it's 35 miles an hour. They sometimes go nonstop. They don't always go nonstop, but they can. This is a similar system in the Netherlands, a 22 passenger vehicle. This is a system that was built in Sweden to demonstrate operations in snow and ice. It's a 6 passenger vehicle. This is a 4 passenger vehicle in the United Arab Emirates. This is at Heathrow Airport. It's a 4 passenger vehicle. Roll on, roll off with bags. This is the next generation of the one that I showed you in the snow and ice. This is a system in Mexico. Here you can see an offline station being demonstrated. The vehicle goes by the station. Here he's getting choosing a destination, paying for a ticket, getting on board. These are 6 passenger vehicles. This company also has an 8 passenger vehicle option. They can train the vehicles together in trains of up to 4, giving a potential capacity up to 19,000 passengers per hour per direction. System went into operation in China in 23, 6 passenger vehicles. This is a test track in the US, in California. It kind of looks like driverless cars driving on the road, but it really isn't. This is a dedicated guideway. It happens to be on the surface. It can also be fully elevated. So these systems all combined have over 100 years of public service and have done over 200 million injury-free passenger miles. This shows how stations work, and unlike what we just saw, which is a video, this is an animation. This is a downtown station situation where you have an elevated station. You have the main guideway bypassing the station. Station guideway is offline from that, and then the station bays are offline from the station guideway, so vehicles can pass other vehicles in the station. All the movements are choreographed. You have about a vehicle coming and going every 10 seconds or so. Passenger use is fairly simple. When you come into the station, you go to the kiosk or you use your smartphone and you choose your destination, and it tells you to wait at the green, yellow, blue, or red berth. So passengers going to theater wait at the yellow berth. Vehicle comes in, people get off, and then they get on. And then when their vehicle leaves, that berth gets assigned a new destination, and the destinations are assigned on demand, depending on what passengers at that time want. So what you see here is a steady stream of vehicles and passengers through the station. It's kind of like pouring water through a hose. And it's unlike carrying water in big buckets, which is kind of like what we do with buses and trains. We have big vehicles coming in and lots of crowds of people waiting and so on. So what you see is about 2,000 departures an hour. It would take about 40 large buses to do that. So we showed you an at-grade station before. Here is another alternative at-grade station. The vehicles come down into the station, other ones going by, bypass it up above. You'll notice that the platform, the station, the guideways, the columns, everything fits behind the sidewalk in an existing developed downtown environment. The vehicle floor is level with the platform, which is level with the sidewalk. There's roll on, roll off with wheels and bags. It's a similar situation with using a kiosk, which is a little difficult to see in the picture, but there is one there, or a smartphone. When the vehicles leave, they go back up. Can you imagine 100 or more of these stations scattered throughout a community, all interconnected, with no need to transfer. So this is what's going on in the ATN world. It's exploding right now. It's just taking off. We have 6 systems that are in public operation around the world. We have 12 systems that are being implemented. That means they're being designed or constructed. And we have another 66 that are under planning at this time. And you'll see most of these, or many of them, are in the northern US, the northern North America, US, Canada, and Mexico. So let's talk quickly about the attributes of the technology. It's like, say, 4 to 22 passenger driverless vehicles. We typically prefer to see 8 passengers or less. The more passengers you have, the more it becomes more like a train. Heavy vehicles, heavy infrastructure, more stops. Capacity up to 19,000, up to 45 miles an hour top speed. But what's very important is that the average speed is similar to the top speed because the stations are offline. So it's unlike a bus or a train where the top speed can be 55 and the average speed can be 20 or 25. Here with a top speed of 45, the average speed is going to be 30 or 35. So you can read the other things. I'm not going to go through them all. These are the different technologies that are presently commercially available. Why does it work? I've made a lot of claims here. Now I'm going to try to justify them, okay? First of all, even with only 4 to 8 seats, you can fit in bicycles and wheelchairs and bags and all those things. With dedicated guideways, you have very safe, reliable travel. The reliability is out the window. It's 99.5%, whereas transit reliability is 97.5% for transit level of service A. That's 5 times less reliable. And it meets the automated people mover standards that are used at airports. And those standards have proven to be incredibly safe. The lightweight vehicles only require small, unobtrusive, lightweight, relatively inexpensive guideways. Onboard switching, and you can see the switch between the wheels, between the rails there, enables short headways with high capacities. And I just want to say, I can explain why this works. But with onboard switching, you can get vehicles a second apart. On trains, on rail switching, the vehicles are about 2 minutes apart. Let's say 100 seconds apart. So if you had a 600 passenger train at every 100 seconds, that's the same as a 6-passenger vehicle every 1 second. That's why these small vehicles have the same capacity as big trains. Offline stations facilitate non-stop trips. The small vehicles also help non-stop trips, and they help have short waiting times because there are lots of vehicles. The network effect I mentioned earlier, it works like this. If you have 2 stations, there are only 2 options. You can either go there or back. If you double the number of stations, wow, you have 12 options. So when you double the station, you more or less quadruple the options. It's not quite as good as that, but it's close. When you have increased options, you have increased ridership. The network effect doesn't work for buses and trains like this, because when you add a station, you add a stop. So that's a big difference. Another factor is using interconnected one-way loops rather than using 2-way corridors. When you use the one-way loop at the bottom, you get double the number of stations, but you only increase the cost by about 1.5 times because most of the costs are in the guideway. Very safe. Right now, if there was an injury accident on ATN today, it would be 5,000 times safer than bus rapid transit. It's actually infinitely safer because it's never had an accident. You can accommodate advanced ride sharing, which helps increase the vehicle occupancy minimizes stopping, but also gives people more options. You can buy a premium ticket or a standard ticket or an economy ticket. And I won't go into the details, but premium, you pay for the whole vehicle for you and your group, and you go non-stop. So if you don't want to share rides, if you're afraid of being attacked or whatever, you can pay extra and have the vehicle to yourself and be fully secure. Very sustainable. A big part of this is the smaller infrastructure. I don't know if you realize this, but surface transportation takes up 30 to 70% of our urban space. It's absolutely ludicrous. We take up less than 10% of the surface space of regular transit. Use much less energy, and we can attract riders from buses and cars and have significantly lower impacts and emissions. So who does it work for? And I'm not going to go through all of this, but basically it works for everybody. And the one person who stands out here that it works for, that you might not think it works for, is the guy in the white jacket. He drives to work every day, and it works for him, because what it does is all the traffic in the system is taken off the road, so it reduces congestion. So drivers benefit also. So it's really a win-win situation. So remember, we talked about the next generation of public transit and how it has the many stations, the high average speed, the good capacity, and the low cost per passenger mile. Well, here's how ATN compares with other modes. Okay, none of the other modes has everything in green. None of them can achieve all of those goals. Only ATN achieves it. Now let's get local and let's look at Broomfield and Westminster. And we chose an area to study here that's along the Front Range passenger rail, because we were concerned that Front Range passenger rail may be providing really good intercity transit, but it's not providing good connectivity in the cities. The stations, Broomfield and Westminster, are going to have less stations likely with Front Range passenger rail than they were planned to have with light rail. So how do we deal with that? How do we solve that problem? So this is an area we chose to look at, and it's outlined, the study area is outlined in black dots. So let's start by saying we decided let's put in 15-minute bus lines are a mile apart, so nobody has to walk more than about half a mile. And that came to 30 miles of bus route and 71 stations stops for a bus. We did exactly the same thing with ATN. The ATN is different colors because we wanted to have the ability to look at different phases, but that's all the same ATN system, it's all internet. Same number of stops and stations. Okay, so how does this work in practice? What's the accessibility or the mobility? If you get on at Westminster and 72nd Light Rail Station, you start there. How far can you get in 30 minutes by walking, waiting, riding, and walking, okay? And the distance you get is in the brown colors. And so you see you can get to maybe most of the stations or about half of the stations. You certainly probably get to a lot less than half of the service area, because once you get to the station, there's no time left to walk. And those stations in the middle, they're on east-west bus lines. And if you're going on the north-south bus line, you're gonna have to transfer to catch an east-west bus line. So you've automatically got another 7 minutes that you've wasted on average. So how does this look for ATN? It's dramatically different. You get everywhere, not just to the stations, you get to almost every piece of ground in the service area in 30 minutes. This is a dramatic difference. So how do the other numbers work out? As I said before, we have 30 miles of route for both. The bus average waiting time we used was 7 minutes based on 15-minute headway. ATN average waiting time is 1 minute. Average speed for bus is 20 minutes based on what the buses actually do in that area today. Average speed for ATN, 35 miles an hour. Annual trips for the bus is 800,000. We're estimating about 12 times those annual trips for ATN because of the reduced walking, waiting, riding times, and the everybody gets a seat and security and all those other factors. That number needs to be confirmed, but it's based on other studies that we've done in detail. This study was not done in detail, but it was based on others. Annual capital plus O&M costs. When I say annual, I'm taking the capital costs and annualizing them, adding them to the total O&M costs. For the bus is 6.5 million. I mean, whoa, there's a typo there. It should be 64 million. And for ATN is 57 million. So that ATN has more passengers and costs a bit less. That results in the cost per trip for the bus being $8, for ATN being almost half that, $5. So now you've got much, much better service for much, much less cost. How do we start this and get it going? We recommend that we start with a small demonstration system that could start at the Westminster and 72nd station and have 3 other stations each in a slightly different type of environment. So 4 total stations, 2 miles of track, wait time of 1 minute, ride time of 2 minutes, capital cost of about 35 million to build that. And that would not be a very worthwhile cost all on its own, because such a small system won't carry a lot of traffic. You need the network effect to make it financially viable, whereas when you add stations, you more than increase the ridership. But this would demonstrate that it can be implemented locally and that the locals would use it, and it would demonstrate that how much they would pay for riding it, and it would help prove the forecasting of that. It would also demonstrate the capital and O&M costing, reliability, and safety. So what's our path forward? We'd like to obtain support from Broomfield, Westminster, Front Range Passenger Rail, Greater Denver Transit, anybody else who can help. And we'd like to consider submitting an unsolicited, a progressive unsolicited proposal, probably to RTD, to do a feasibility study, a preliminary design, and then all the steps through to actually building the system. This would start off with a feasibility study, which one of the big aspects would be public input, which started tonight with your input, by the way. We're going to get some more of it now. Looking at the viability of the layout, figuring out what the ridership revenue should be, the benefit cost analysis, looking at funding and financial viability, and then what the risks are and how to mitigate those. So we've got a few minutes for a few questions.
I have many things.
Pick one. One question.
One?
Yeah, because we are a little
relate.
I mean, in terms of this, like, if you're asking for, I don't even know where to start. So, if we're going short on time, you're gonna have to pass up because I don't think I can go through all of this. But yeah.
Let's go, Jackson.
So I believe it was in the 80s, early 80s. There was a city, not Denver. Rosemont, Illinois, wanted to build a personal rapid transit system, or I don't remember what the
Personal rapid transit. I think it was in the 90s. Yeah.
So that city funded a good, I think, over $100 million for that project. It ballooned in cost. That would be the first thing, because the problem with building anything elevated is you have a lot of failure points, especially since these pods are all remotely motored. Because of that, they have more points of failure. That does increase cost. So the question would be, what is your solution to not be like the PRT systems of the 90s, to not cause that cost increase?
So in the 2000s, in 2010, 11, and 14, 3 different PRT systems were built, and they all came in, I won't say exactly on budget, but there were no big overruns.
Were they suspended like this?
No, they were all supported.
Yeah. Were those the Heathrow one, the Puebla, and
Heathrow, Vectus in South Korea, and system in Abu Dhabi.
Has there been a suspended monorail version of this that's been built?
No, there hasn't. Yeah, and Vuber believes suspended is the way to go, but initially we're technology agnostic. We're going to put in whatever system the community chooses that fits that community best. In some cases, suspended won't be the best. Yes, sir.
I guess my question is in terms of the most effective metro systems and transit systems that we have globally, systems that transport millions of people a day. I guess my follow-up would be, why aren't these systems like the kinds of systems we should invest in over a Verba system, which requires new infrastructure, which requires, additional studies, which requires a plurality of other components that are not necessarily supported or, like, frankly, necessary in relation to we have systems of transit that have been proven to be effective.
No, they're not, but a lot of them are not proven to be effective. RTD's light rail is not carrying very many people.
Well, if your system isn't maintained for 20 years, it probably won't be doing too much better either.
The first system I showed you has been running for 50 years.
Morgantown? No, that's a nightmare. They're like monkeys in there.
I'm
trying
sorry,
to keep
it's
the
not.
pods
It
running.
carries 15,000
It's
passengers.
with great effort on the maintenance staff.
It's very ancient too. If we want to stay in the past, I agree with you.
Okay. Matri, do you have a question?
We need to move on. I'm running out of time, right?
Yeah.
One last question on that.
Take the last question.
So we have this, whole, specific Broomfield thing. Broomfield is not willing to. I cannot see them going on and saying, yes, we're going to build all this. This is not the kind of place where you are going to get that kind of even like good 15-minute bus network. I cannot see in that suburban area, which is like it is not. I cannot see the local governments. I cannot see the people there saying, yes, we'll build this. Where are you going to get the money to? This is going to be a lot of cap. So we're doing private investments.
Very, very likely, because once these systems get big enough, they support themselves financially. That's a big difference between these systems and trains.
So we're looking at
We have investors who are interested in funding these systems.
Really from when you start the proposal, how long would it take to have a system implemented?
So if there's no bureaucracy involved,
Yes.
2 years.
Okay. All right, I'd like to close. I'm going to take
the
last comment.
Do you have a comment?
Read the comment out loud.
Our comment is
If you would also answer the question, please.
the great attraction is that the vehicles are small and potentially private. The great difficulty is that there are a lot of them. Google see, for example, they were mentioned Morgantown.
Okay.
Any more questions? One last?
No.
We're done?
The only comment I was going to make is I actually was working at Heathrow at the time they were building the system. I was
really?
building on it. Yeah, I was quite excited. I'll give you something. When you're in a massive international airport like Heathrow, they do try to be innovative. They are very keen to do their bit in sustainable things like that. Here's the thing: they put the system in 2000 and
It opened in 2011.
2011, so it wasn't quite with the new Terminal 5. If this system, 14 years later, was now considered by Heathrow as underperforming, a disaster, a failure, they would probably have ripped it out and substituted buses. Yes. Probably used COVID as an excuse to shut it down, mothball it, not happen. The fact that Heathrow, a major international airport, has kept the faith. Because I've seen similar things Heathrow have done where they've said, this is terrible, it doesn't work, rip it out.
Yeah.
And the fact they haven't done that does speak more than...
And now the Chinese are putting the same system in the Chinese airport. So another airport has said, yeah, it works.
Okay,
So they're the results. Not much difference between 15-minute bus and ATN. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Interesting. Thank you very much. All right, we are running. Are we changing over to
Yes, that's the
little
idea.
little changeover?
Damn, who's that?
Okay, so he's brilliant. Okay, so as everybody knows, we were so heavily involved in last year's board elections. We always appreciated the directors that ran. We backed here. I'm just call out Mr. Nicholson, Mr. Larson, any other? Mr. Pagliari had to go. Thank you so much.
Okay.
But it gives me one other guy we did support and particularly backed him to be the board chair. Was this fellow? Yaels from Parker, been on the board for
It's my 5th year.
5th year on the board, so he did get re-elected. The story was Emma Matry. The story was that we had to help him out get the signatures. Thanks to Emma, she had to go. Who else was the junior signature interview? So he wouldn't even be sitting here if it wasn't for that. But luckily, whatever, we all helped. So please give a big hand, RTD Board Chair Julian Bouclet.
Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. I'll keep my presentation a little limited. I know we're a little short on time, and really I'll open it up when it comes down to questions and feedback, which obviously I've heard from Bus Wraps as some pretty good feedback of maybe we were looking at that as a working group and maybe study that. So just quick introduction. So as seen, Julian Bouquet, so RTD board chair, just took over as the board chair for this year. I'm going on my 5th year of the board. Thank you to everyone who was able to collect those signatures. Actually, we were able to do it in less than 2 weeks. You don't have to look up the failed primary election that all came to it, but I remember James, it was in real time that it was at the board meeting, found the election results, and then James says, all right, when are we going to go collect some signatures? And so greatly appreciate GDT supporting me and supporting me for the board chair position. So moving on.
You can also advance the slides with your.
Excellent. Okay, so as you guys are all aware, 15 elected board members. We just got our 8 who were elected in, 7 new, and then myself as the one returner. We're elected to 4-year terms, so I will be term limited come 2028. I did put in as the second bullet that our annual salary is $12,000. So if you are interested in being an RTD director, you most likely will have to keep your full-time job. My full-time job, I'm actually a middle school teacher down in Highlands Ranch. So I got a little break today because I got to go do some interviews for our new chief of police. Got a break from the kids, but this is definitely my night job, as we like to call it. So. And for those who are all interested, there are 7 seats up for election in 2026, which is B and C, which is in our Denver area here, JKLNNO. So that is the map for it. So if you live in that and you are interested in being an RT director and making that $900 a month, this might be the job for you. So guys, the main job as a RTD director, you guys are all pretty familiar. Our main job is really, we're policymakers for the agency. I view ourselves really as communication channels, not only as I'll do my best to express where the agency is at, but at the same time, I want to take in the information that I hear from stakeholders, specifically like you guys at GDT, not only my stakeholders that I represent, which I represent District G, which is the South, Southeast, which is Lone Tree and Parker. We want to be hearing from everyone. We want to make sure that the agency is as best as it can. And I think we have a great group of directors, which vast majority of the ones that got elected were backed by GDT. We have a great group of new directors. So, all right, moving on. I'm going to kind of skip through this. If you guys are interested in the board governance part of it, we're 4 standing committees: finance and planning, operations, safety and security, performance, and then our executive committee. As mentioned by Keith, we meet at the last Tuesday of each and every month for a full board meeting. So if you guys are interested in attending that, it's coming up. Highly recommend you do. Highly recommend you take in public comment, because as little as sometimes you might be saying you're talking to avoid, it actually does add up. Public comment, activism, it leads to, for example, 7 of your 8 back directors actually being on the board. So what might feel like a small voice actually adds up and helps impact us. Meeting schedules are also there as well. Performance will vary, and generally Monday mornings, but the rest of the meetings will always be at 5:30. Those are really easy to attend for, especially those who have full-time jobs, such as myself. So Moving on, policy process. So policy will generally come from each of the 4 standing committees. OSS and F&P will be our big policy carriers. It's introduced mainly as a discussion item first, and then we'll go forward as an action item. The policy passes with a majority vote. It'll be seen and voted upon by the full board. Once all 15 board members or whoever is assembled during our full board meeting, which is mostly all 15 board members, if they pass it, then, or if we pass it, then it'll go forward and it'll actually become policy. And it depends. There's actually 2 votes. So 1, bylaw changes, which are coming up in our next one. You do need 10 votes to pass. Anything that has to do with rail also needs 10 votes to pass. Everything else is a simple majority. So policy introduction. Policies were discussed during our board retreat in February and placed on each of the committee's work plans. So we had a long retreat on a Saturday to discuss what policies we really wanted to see introduced. We can also introduce policies throughout the year through a 3 director acted initiative. One of our board goals, as I'll touch upon, is making it so that directors have more of a pathway going forward when it comes to, hey, how could we implement this policy, which I'll talk about in a minute. Again, if I'm going too fast, just let me know, but I'm wanting to respect all of your guys' time. So speaking of the board goals, there's 3 main goals that we established as a board of directors. The first of being the biggest one, I think, in my opinion. So this is actually work that Director Larson, Matt in the back, and Director Keith are working on as a working group. And we're actually going to have this discussion on Tuesday. And that is the establishment of an efficient process for the board of directors to create short-term goals for the GMCO prior to the finalization of the annual budget. It's kind of been backwards how we've been doing it, and I take ownership to that. That has been a
I'm sorry, it's bugging.
So basically, how it kind of works is we're introduced as a board. How it did work is we're introduced as a board of directors with, hey, here's the annual budget. What do you want to make as the short-term goals for your GM CEO? Well, how much say does the board of directors have in that then? And so that's our biggest one by far. And again, thank you for the work with Matt and Patrick on this, because they've been doing a great job. We're going to have a full study session about the process itself to establish this not only for the 2026 goal setting process, but every goal setting process going forward. Because when we're having these stakeholder engagements, we can say, hey, GM CEO, this is what we're hearing. This is what we want to put into the budget. We're the voice of the public. We're the communication channel. So budget it out for things that we want to see. I'm going to talk about it later in the slides, and I've talked to a couple directors about this. One of the things is partnership programs. I think we greatly need to fund our partnership programs, especially with our suburban districts, because I'll get to it, but that is something that we wouldn't be able to do based on how the current process is. This new process gives a lot more say to the directors. Saying to the directors is a say from the public. Next one is basically expanding engagement and tracking engagement with public stakeholders. So meetings such as this, we have a tracking form each of us as the directors do. This was first introduced this year. Basically, at the end of the year, my hope is to see, hey, Julian, you keep talking to the town of Parker, you keep talking to Lone Tree. Where are you falling short? Do you need to be talking to the chambers of commerce? Do you need to be talking, with GDT more? Do you need to be talking with the nonprofit organizations more? This is to make sure that, everyone does feel heard. They know who their director is for their region. And again, half of the battle is for you knowing who your director is and saying, hey, can we get a cup of coffee? I would like to discuss that. And that's one thing where there's a gap. Some directors are doing an excellent job, of meeting with their stakeholders, making that connection. There's others that, need a little push. And that's kind of where the second goal goes from. The third one is, again, kind of more director, I don't want to say authority, but more autonomy when it comes to creating an active policy agenda. So we also introduced an active policy agenda form, which basically says, hey, Chris and Matt tonight saw a lot about bus wraps. Let's have the conversations with bus wraps, which I did get your email, Chris, and I will address. So, but that basically it is encouragement of director initiated items so that they actually know, let's say, hey, we want to change X policy based on what I heard. What is the best route to go forward with? Some of them might be a study session. Some might be a working group. Some might be an ad hoc committee. Some might be an actual item that's seen by the full board. So these are our 3 main goals as a board of directors. And then just kind of, I'll touch quickly when it comes to the GM CEO goals for 2025 this year. Just wanted to kind of touch base again of how much voice the community has when it elects to its directors, because there's a common theme that I heard when I was on the campaign trail and that I was hearing from our director-elects at the time. Had a dinner with all 7 of them, of you guys, and the big things that I heard was, we want to see basically an increase in ridership, we want to see the perception of on-time performance improve, and we want to improve the perception of personal security. Those are the 3 big ones, security, on-time performance, and ridership. So those are the big things that we heard. What's going to happen now with our first goal is we'll have the discussion on April 22nd, and on June 7th, that's going to be kind of the real discussion of what our actual 2026 goals are. So it is, do we want to carry with those goals that we've heard? Do we want to expand them? Are there other things that we want to look into? That's going to be kind of our hope when it comes to goal 1. Dived into the other ones, expanding stakeholder engagement, talked a little bit about the initiated policy groups. Did want to talk about working groups so far and highlight and, shout out to some of my directors. So again, shout out to Larson and O'Keefe, Matt and Patrick, for a working group on the GMCO goals. They put a lot of time and effort into that. This one's pretty new, but the working group for a welcoming trans environment, which is Secretary Nicholson, Chris, and then Brett, who is also a GDT member, Pagulari, are working on that. This is going to be working close with the CAC, the hope is, and that you guys kind of get a good understanding of where the gaps were falling in, the RTD system. And then finally, we have introduced a working group, which is our board operating guidelines and bylaw review. That's going to be a cleanup, and that's led by directors Banker and Chandler. The next steps when it comes to 2025, like I mentioned, there is going to be a June retreat for our GM and CEO short-term goals. Talk to your directors if you already know them, or shoot me an email as well about what are you hearing from your communities? What are you guys seeing as an organization that you think should be a goal for our GM CEO? Because Deborah Johnson is.
Just to cut in, we
Yeah.
have as a group sent the board a letter before the retreat.
Perfect.
We have done that. We can do that again. There's no real limit. We can, so if you've got ideas and whatever, we might just put them all together and write them one big letter.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's what we'd like to hear too, because that kind of the sooner the better, because how it's going to work is we're going to have this study session on Tuesday, and we're going to talk about, hey, what's the process we want to set forward, and then we're going to send out a form to the rest of the directors and basically compile what are the common themes we're kind of hearing from directors, and a letter from GDT says, hey, these are the things we think should our GMCO, Ms. Johnson, be evaluated on from a community perspective. Again, it's the 2 community channels. Yes. Yes. So again, if you look at how we changed the GMCO short-term goals, from last year, 50% now for this 2025 year is going to be, based, her valuation is based on the short-term goals that we set. So it's a little bit more ambitious. Okay. Real quick, again, just want to talk about Tap to Pay. Tap to Pay is a big thing that I've heard from GDT. It is in the budget for 2020. Yeah, give it a clap. As Jeb Bush would say, please clap. Okay.
Come on.
Based on where we're at, we should be. It is budgeted for 2025. It's already in there. It is should be introduced in Q3, is what we've been told. So, and again, anyone not familiar with Tap to Pay, I think most of the people here are familiar with Tap to Pay. Just a much more efficient system, Yeah.
A really just silly question. Can we turn on the volume on those things so it doesn't blow my eardrums out every time I tap it?
Okay. That is good feedback. That is good feedback. I'll write that one. I'll write that one down. I'll ask what the volume is about. So, light rail speed restrictions. I'll just skip through this slide. You guys don't really care. You don't care about this one. No. This is the lift. So I just want to let you guys know this is the lifting of the speed restrictions. 24 of the 29 have been lifted as it is. Again, the main ones that have been lifted, all the speed restrictions, the Union and the Downtown Loop have been lifted. And then the goal, like I said, the goal is all restrictions should be lifted by next month. So, and again, maintenance. Keith brought it up. Again, aging infrastructure when it comes to it, making the appropriate repairs. So, okay, more welcoming transit environment. As I mentioned, we, myself and Chris, were at the chief of police interviews and panels that were happening. Big thing that we're hearing is, the want for a more welcoming transit environment. We don't want to see that unwelcome activity, and just to be frank, we don't want to see people that, are using drugs. We don't want to be seeing that people causing disruption. We want to make sure that it is a friendly system, especially for first-time users. Just a little couple statistics there. I did also want to throw a plug in for the Transit Watch app, as well as you can always call it 303-299-29111 or text 303-434-9100. Did want to say the big thing that we've transitioned to is like our hired out security force compared to an actual transit police force, which has been a major success. When I first got on the board, it was just, I could count the amount of transit police officers on this hand compared to where we are at now, which is, over 100. And by the end of 2025, we should have 150 full-time transit police workers. So this is a big thing. Again, what we're hearing is we want more presence. I've talked to Ms. Johnson about this, and it is the soft areas, those certain bus routes and those light rail stations, or at the light rail stations and the light rails themselves. That's your more vulnerable area of unwanted activity. So, and then partnership program. So going into it, this will be this is actually my last slide. So big thing that I'm going to be pushing with. For you guys as the board directors, Matt and Chris, I haven't talked to you guys too much about, but I think a huge thing that we need to be partnering or doing is expanding our partnership program. So we did increase the amount of money that we allocate for the partnership program. For anyone not familiar with it, it basically is, any municipality, they're generally going to be the ones who are going to be taking advantage of this. RTD says we'll chip in X amount. Who are the other partners you're going to be finding? So $3 million was allocated for 2025. That is an increase from previous years. The thing that you see on the transportation that you see on the slideshow there, that's a link on demand or the Lone Tree link. That is in my jurisdiction, and they took advantage of the partnership program, and it's helping to fund kind of their access on demand. And one of the things we're going to be pushing for, and well, I'll be pushing for, this is my bias, is greatly increasing the amount of money in that partnership program. Because, again, if Broomfield wanted to do a system as like you had presented, I don't necessarily think that's going to be something that's going to fall into RTD's shoulders. But if the city of Broomfield is one that wants to look into that, we'd say, hey, we would give over $100,000 into this system. The call for bids has just begun, and that ends in May. Yes.
Okay, so the things like this with the microtransit, which works great, for these suburban areas. But like for the Lone Tree Link, when you're looking at the RTD trip planner and such, or just looking around the website, you'll barely find that. And it's basically impossible to know that exists if you're going off RTD services. So my question is how. And we're spending a lot of money, relatively, to fund these important projects. How do we make sure that gets out to RTD riders, and that that we have that integrated into the system, so that we we don't have like a ORCARP situation in Golden where it's just
Yeah. So it's a great question. So it comes down to two factors really. Is one, we as RTD, I think that we'd be more than open to advertise that and communicate that. It is a question then with the municipality too, is do you want to be truly connected to the RTD system, or do you view it as, hey, RTD is going to fund X project? So it is a bigger question. It's an excellent question of, hey, should we have it as, true system? It's like when you talk to the city of Lone Tree, they take a lot of pride in the Lone Tree link or the link on demand, and they like to kind of have it as, this is our baby, but it's a more than fair, question of, hey, is this something that we are going to be encouraging?
Yeah, I'm not saying we need RTD.
Sure.
You should be able to, it should be integrated with
Sure.
this trip plan. I should be able to say, go on to the next ride, I should say, or do I want to get from, Arapahoe Station to this place, and I should be able to plan that internally with RTD, especially if it's RTD money that's going to these projects.
Sure.
It should be able to be one that actually makes it known, and it makes it integrated.
Sure, that's excellent feedback, and I would have to check with staff on the and seeing what we could do. So, thank you for sharing. Yes.
was just gonna say, you should definitely plaster RTD on the side of the chip in as particularly in districts like yours, that's more disconnected from transit services. Having that visibility is going to be key to making sure that RTD's money is returning to these so that they can value.
Right. That's an excellent fit. Really great point so far. And again, you said it perfectly of, a lot of municipalities we're hearing is like, we want to get, our best return on investment. And for a lot of folks, it's, hey, we want to do a microtransit like the Link on Demand. We'll take the RTD money and we'll spend it and we'll find out a way to have it. But it is an excellent way to say, hey, this is RTD money funding into this process. Is it appropriate to have the RTD logo on it? So appreciate that. Yeah.
Just going back a slide to the transit walk, I think that's great. I was wondering if there's any ideas for us about combining that with like the MyRide app, because I feel like a lot of times, like my partner, she does not have the transit watch app, knows about it, but if it was in MyRide and maybe integrated in there, then she would be able to access that and she could be more visible.
Yeah.
You don't have 4 separate apps to use.
I love RTD apps.
There are 4. There are 5, aren't there?
Add to that, though, not so many about the number of apps, but for me, I've used the Transit Watch app. But I also felt really uncomfortable opening it when I'm trying to report something that's happening in front of me. So if it was woven into the more traditional app, then it might make other people feel more comfortable.
Okay. That's good feedback.
I know there are, obvious safety and security concerns, and GDT has spoken on it multiple times. I guess my question to you is, in terms of priorities, how much are we leaning towards a private RTD-specific security versus like police? I know there are a lot of marginalized groups who would feel less safe on transit with the police being present, given that they don't tend to help in those kinds of situations, as opposed to a private security force, which might actually contribute to some of that.
No, it's an excellent question. Again, where we're getting feedback is we like seeing the transition when it comes to actually the transit police force, because we can hold our transit police a little bit more accountable. In the interview process, the big thing that I love about that both candidates for our chief of police position said is, yes, police presence is the first step of it, but the biggest thing we need to address are social workers, mental health clinicians who can actually help with it. And that was very comforting to hear from both candidates. So,
yeah, following up on the point, is there been any movement forward or RTD to sort of diversify the types of responses?
For the what? I'm sorry.
To like diversify the types of responses, like Fair Ambassador, like there's not just this is the only tool that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you already kind of seen it again, where the problem is you had Allied Security. It's like we were just hiring out a private contractor. Now we really are controlling it, and we can actually mimic a municipality's, police force. And let's be honest, some municipalities do a better job than others when it comes to having mental health clinicians. And so, again, it's a priority that I believe the board shares. I don't want to speak on behalf of the entire board, but a big thing is I think there will be a push from this board when it comes to whoever our new chief of police will be of, hey, it's not only a police presence, it's also how are we helping in the presence of a social worker or a mental health clinician.
Yeah, I was just recently in LA.
Yeah.
Essentially, it displays of there's 6 different options of response.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to respect your time.
Hey, we got to respect some of the other questions, just other voices.
Yeah. Question about the slow zones. So I know that it's been kind of delayed. The end date, it was originally supposed to be earlier this year, and it's been pushed back for a variety of reasons, including I saw one cited weather. I don't know if we weren't expecting snow in Colorado. I don't know how much you can speak to this, but why was it delayed for things that we probably should have expected, like weather? Generally, why was it so delayed?
Sure. I'm going to be frank. This is the answer.
Right.
You're not going to like. Yeah. I can't answer upon that. Again, I'm not looking at the day-to-days. The frustration is there. I've been in that 100%. Again, this is coming from the perspective of a writer. When I was using the E-line, I'll be frank, and this was I was talking to Deborah or Miss Johnson about was what is going on here? So understand your frustrations with it. I unfortunately can't give you a true answer. I would be.
Does the board have plans, maybe you colleagues about this, like to kind of investigate why this is taking so long. I don't know how much power you have here, but like obviously there were like issues with this process. It's
Sure.
gone on for a year plus. Like the communication has not been there. It's been
It's another good point too, and it's like, what are the lessons learned? And because this process is, it's going to happen again. It's like there's going to be some kind of maintenance project, and it is a good question to ask. And again, the feedback that I'm receiving, I just want to make sure that you feel heard, and I want to make sure that these are questions I can all go forward when I talk with Deborah on Tuesday. Chris.
You know what? Okay.
So you were talking about the partnership program. You were talking a little bit about you're from partner from Douglas County, which has perennially grumbled about service that they get from RTD and the amount of money that they spend. What types of service do you think we need to offer in a place like? And I don't mean through like a part. I mean like RTD service. What types of service do you think we need to offer in Douglas County to be providing them the type of value?
So RTD specific, not a partnership program. Well, it depends who you ask in Douglas County.
That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, so if you ask me specifically, the return on investment in Douglas County, I think is 33 cents per the dollar, which, again, don't throw tomatoes at me. That's actually pretty good for a suburban district. Again, when I talked to the former mayor of Parker, he was wanting it to be 70%. The suburban regions will never be there. I just want to be frank with it. And again, I think that's why we need to lean on these partnership programs to kind of understand where they can fill in, they can fill in the gaps with it. For service specifically with RTD, it's the Regional Transportation District. So the Route P, the Route 43, and obviously with Parker and then Lone Tree, the E-line is connecting them to the central hub, which is Denver. I think those services that have already been established, in my viewpoint, I don't necessarily think RTD is going to be the one that should be providing the microtransit. I think that is something that the town of Parker should be looking into. That's something that the Link on Demand should be looking into. But I do believe that RTD should be part of that funding. So it's a good question. Yeah, Joe.
Just want to add something to the partnership program for the group in case you guys have to make connections. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's city, county governments are capable of applying, but also the transportation management organizations, TMOs.
Yeah, TMOs.
So think like Smart Commute or Commuting Solutions or Denver South, these types of groups. They can also apply for these partnership grants. So if you have connections in places like that, they have ideas.
Do you want to do a couple more questions? We're at 8:32.
Let's do one more from the audience, and I will offer the closing question.
Okay.
So, Sagapol, you've had your hand very patiently.
So I wanted to focus on the tax rate. You told us between 25. As a vendor being selected for this, there's like a process in terms of what the rollout's going to be like. And another thought is fair capping.
So sorry.
Is fair capping can be implemented across months?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I don't know the exact answer on those ones exactly, but I don't know the exact on that. So Chris, if you want to go for
it. To answer very quickly, Masabi, the vendor that we use for the existing hardware, using the same person. They're the ones who make the next to the MyRide app, the whole hardware. And yes, we are going to be doing fair capping. We're going to be doing the discount card. You're going to be able to tie your credit card if you're assuming you're a lift discount. So you can just tap the same way you can in New York. And what they told me is this is all rolling out, all of it, in it's not going to be we're doing some of it and then we're rolling out the discount. Right? Yeah, there's some back end stuff you have to do to get the discounts and stuff working. But,
I think they tried rolling some big out at some point because it showed up.
That's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, even if it turns off, so you still have to override in the Masabi or whatever app. Otherwise, it will block the QR code.
Perfect. All right, James, did you want to roll us out?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we as advocates have spent a lot of time working on, right, especially when we're talking about things we want to change, things we want to see improve, is having kind of measurable things and measurable points of comparison. So one thing that I personally have done is, with a lot of some of the other leads at GDT putting together a peer list, right? Where one of the things that, if I'm just being completely honest, right, is that when there's several members of management and some previous board members have talked about the apples and fish talking point, the idea that you can't compare transit agencies to each other because they're different. I think there's a consensus here that we passionately disagree with that we passionately believe that in order to create North Stars, in order to inform where we can go, where it's possible to go, that RTD should inform future ridership targets, future growth targets, around peer performance. So do you think that there is an openness for you personally and on the board to adopt a peer group that will inform some of the targets for future board targets? And specifically, are you open to really building that peer group based on operations, peers who operate similarly to RTD rather than kind of a political list, if that makes sense?
Yeah, great question. So it's funny you mentioned this. So I actually talked with Deborah about this about 3 one-on-ones ago, because one of the things is that, you know, when you have nothing to compare to, you have everything to compare to, you know. And so one of the asks that I had for GMCO Johnson was, can we identify 5 comparator agencies? It's very a touchy subject when we say peer agencies, but 5 comparator agencies. And she's 100% open to it. I think the board's 100% open to it. One of the things that would be cool is we obviously have the performance dashboard. It wouldn't necessarily, from the conversations, and I don't want to misquote her on this or anything, but from the conversations we had is, well, RTD we can compare to DART, not saying we're actually going to compare to DART, but let's say we compare to DART in certain realms of the performance dashboard. We would compare to Seattle Sound Transit on certain parts of the performance dashboard. And ideally, when you guys check out our, not saying we are, just saying, but when you go and check our performance dashboard, you would see, hey, how are we comparing to our comparator agencies? Because that gives you kind of an idea, and when I mean you, I mean the public, kind of a good idea of where we're at compared to transit agencies throughout the country. Because again, the issues that we see on RTD is just not unique to RTD. Some might be, and that's what really the board should be seeing and making sure to address. And so to answer your question, it is a top priority to figure out who those comparator agencies are. And from the conversations that I had with GMCO Johnson, it is something, if the board is wanting, she is wanting.
Cool. Of course. Okay, great. So one last little thing, and I want you to imagine Julian has a chairman's privilege that he can pass one policy. Doesn't need to get the votes, you can just do it. It's a privilege, okay? What should it be? Just shout them out. What would you get him to do?
We can use technology.
Oh,
use it. Okay, great
we got some
stuff.
bias there.
Go on, say that. Come on, any more? Come on, anything. Come on, you've got his ear for 30 seconds.
About 7.5 minutes.
Okay, next. Any more?
Overlapping schedules. Get the schedules back to overlapping and more effective.
Becomes a policy.
Service planning. Eliminate having Fridays and Saturdays be different scheduled services. That's so dumb.
Simplify.
Okay.
Full system map.
Hang on. Shout them out quick. Come on.
Off board fare collection and certain high usage stops.
Okay.
Full system map.
Full system map.
And hourly routes. We should not have one of those.
And
every hourly route should become half hourly at the very least.
no hourly
An
routes.
hourly routes
Fair.
is useless.
I would just say
Finish fast track. I think we should end on that
All
one,
right.
guys.
All right, it's all balanced.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julian.
Thank you. Hey, folks, I know we're transitioning. We're going to go get beverages.
Yep,
we are.
Excellent. Before we all do that, if I could get a selfie with all of you guys
Oh,
during
yeah.
some transition period, that'd be great. So.
Oh my gosh. All right, so which way we
I got a selfie.
Let's do.
Let's do that. Yeah, let's do it. Actually,